Welcome to the Veterinary Rehabilitation Podcast, where we aim to help fellow veterinary rehab therapists increase their knowledge and elevate their practice. I'm Megan Kelly.
And I'm Anae Lloyd. Together, we bring you the latest insights, research, and information in the field of veterinary rehabilitation.
This podcast is brought to you by Onlinepethealth, a leading continuing education membership for veterinary rehabilitation therapists. With Onlinepethealth, you'll have access to a wide range of online resources to help you stay up to date with the latest techniques, advances, and trends in the industry.
Our podcast features in-depth conversations with leading experts in veterinary rehabilitation. They share their own experiences and knowledge to help you improve your practice. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out in the field, our goal is to provide you with the tools and the insights you need to succeed.
So join us as we explore the exciting world of veterinary rehabilitation and help you take your practice to the next level. Hey vet rehabbers, bringing new staff into your practice is a major decision, and it's not just about finding someone to do the job, but about finding the right person who aligns with your clinic's values, culture, and long-term vision. Now, the right hire can strengthen your team, improve efficiency, and contribute to the overall success of your practice. Now, if you haven't listened to the previous episode 350 on hiring new staff, can you afford it? I highly recommend you go and check it out. It's a great companion to this episode and will help you think strategically about when and how to expand your team. In today's episode, Francisco Maia is going to share his expert insights on building the right team for your vet rehab practice, and we're going to discuss understanding the key roles in a rehab practice, finding the right fit, so how to identify candidates whose skills and values align with your practice, and creating a strong team culture. So why hiring isn't just about qualifications, but about building a cohesive team. So if you're looking to expand your team but want to make sure you hire the right people, this episode is packed with practical tips and strategies to help you do just that. If you're looking for some free online learning, we've got you covered alongside our membership, which includes over 500 hours of vet rehab specific content for equine, small animals, and hydrotherapy. We also offer free webinars through our limited access membership. The latest updates include the biomechanics of agility by Ariel Pichette Markley, capitalizing on canine cognition during hydrotherapy with Ansi van der Walt, and returning the equine athlete to work after injury with Lee Clark. So if you're interested in that, you can go to onlinepethealth.com/free. A quick word from our sponsors before we dive in. At Paw Prosper, we believe true pet well-being demands a three-pronged approach: prevention, support, and rehabilitation. Our brands are trusted by veterinarians, universities, and rehab facilities alike. So whether you're looking to train, rehabilitate, or help your pets age gracefully, our brands, Walking Pets, Help 'em Up, Response Systems, Fit Paws, Muffins, Halo, Sleepy Pod, and Canine Carts offer effective, innovative, and proven solutions. So you can sign up today to receive a one-time special gift for all the podcast listeners with your next order, and you can go to pawprosper.com/OPH. Right, over to Francisco.
Thank you so much for Megan Kelly and the Online Pet Health team for another opportunity to be teaching you guys some more of the business basic trainings. So last month, if you guys haven't listened to it, go back. We talked about hiring new staff, but more from a perspective of can you afford it and how to go about that. And today we're going to talk about finding the right fit, who we're looking for, and how to find the right person to join your team. Okay. So let me go to the first slide over here. There you go. Sorry about that. Okay. So first question I often get is like, who should we hire first? Okay. And, should it be a clinical staff? Should it be administrative staff? Like, you can make an argument either way, to be quite honest, but what you need to do is have an understanding of the pros and cons with each option so you can make the decision that works best for you, okay? So let's talk about the clinical staff first. What are the pros and cons of first hiring another therapist or another clinical staff? That is more often than not who most clinicians feel more comfortable hiring first. And the thought process behind that is that it's going to allow them to build their caseload and then hire another therapist to offload some of that caseload too, so they can then, quote unquote, work on the business. All right. Financially, it's also a little bit more of a comfortable situation as well, because this is a staff that kind of like generates revenue. Okay. And I say that in quotes, generate revenue. because I truly think that every staff generates revenue. Some do it directly, like a therapist seeing an appointment, but like your marketing assistant, your front desk person, they are a part of making sure that people are coming to your clinic, staying at your clinic, and spending money with you. So everyone is generating revenue, okay? But I feel more often than not, the reason why therapists feel more comfortable recruiting and training someone that is a clinical staff first is because it is something that we feel comfortable doing, which is treating patients, right? We'll feel comfortable doing that because you are a physical therapist, you are a veterinary physio, you are a veterinarian, right? Whatever your role is, that's the role you feel most comfortable with because you've been doing this the longest. Now, the challenge with that is going to be, how are you going to grow their caseloads if you're busy treating patients for a full caseload yourself too? Okay. And even if you do manage to grow their caseloads while keeping up with yours, then you're going to get overloaded with more administrative tasks, because now it's more veterinary records that we got to chase, more billing that's got to be done, more scheduling that got to get taken care of, and this, and that. Okay. So you got to keep those untangible things in mind as well, because you hired this person to be a therapist, to be a clinician, to see patients. Okay. And we should create an environment for them to succeed at that. So then who is going to be the one doing the administrative support tasks that it would allow that person to succeed as a clinician? Well, then in this scenario, it would be on you. And if you're okay with that, that's okay. But once again, we just need to understand the pros and cons that can come with that. Another major challenge I have seen from solo canine rehab therapists when it comes to that is the fact that they often rely a lot on word of mouth referrals and veterinary referrals. Veterinary referrals that usually was based off a relationship built personally with them. Okay. Like a veterinarian being like, oh, I'm sending this, I'm recommending you go see Francisco. Right. And then what happens is that those leads, those potential clients are going to come to your clinic and they're going to want to see you rather than this new therapist that you hired. Why? Because their friend told them to see you, because their veterinarian told them to see you, right? So suddenly you do have another clinician working with you, and your schedule is the one that is actually full because people want to see you. And their schedule is actually struggling to keep it up and be consistent with it. And that's where I see a lot of clinicians sometimes get frustrated with kind of like, how do I get people to go see the other rehab therapists in my practice rather than just wanting to see me? Okay, so you got to keep that in mind. Then let's talk about the pros and cons of hiring first administrative staff. So the biggest pros is that those administrative tasks can now be done by someone else but you. So you can focus on what you do best, which is see patients, right? So now you don't have to be doing the billing. You don't have to be doing the invoicing. You don't have to be doing the scheduling. Even some other tasks like posting on social media, potentially. Emailing for veterinary records, keeping track of sending records, receiving records, all that kind of stuff. Checking on people, messaging clients that haven't been in a while, see how they're doing. If you have administrative help, then you can focus on seeing your patients and you help that person manage the other aspects of the business on the administrative side of things. So that's the pro. It frees up your time, and potentially you're going to be able to see even more patients because of that, because you're going to be more efficient with your time. The biggest con usually I hear from that scenario is that then this person, it's not, like I said earlier, generating revenue, right? But they are freeing up your time. So you got to understand that. So if someone is freeing up your time to the point where you can see an extra 3, maybe 4 appointments in a week, would that be enough to cover how much they cost you? And then not only that, they're able to build some of those administrative systems where then once you hire another clinician, they're able to manage that aspect of it. So that way you don't feel overloaded with the burden of doing those administrative tasks for you and your new clinician. All right. So which one do I usually prefer to do first? I personally, I'm a proponent of hiring administrative staff first. Okay. That's me. I prefer that approach first. I think it tends to work a whole lot better. I think when you weight the pros and cons, it is something that, oops, I accidentally moved the slide. Sorry about that. I was just making sure that I was recording. It is something that I prefer is to hire administratively first. Now, the biggest challenge is going to be with the planning and the finances required. So if you haven't listened to our training from last month about how can I afford it and the numbers behind it, that's when that's going to be really helpful, because you're going to be able to know how much you need to bring in to be able to have that person working with you. Okay. Now, the other question I get about it is, okay, how about hiring someone who can do both? Couldn't I just hire a technician or an assistant who can answer the phone, do the scheduling, send invoices, billing, etc., but also do some laser sessions, also do some underwater treadmill sessions or whatever it may be? And once again, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not saying that you can't go that route if that's what you want to. And some of you listening to this might have done this, or maybe even know someone who has done this in our field too. I'm not here to tell you what's right or wrong, but hopefully what I want you to see is the pros and cons of each decision. The pros in this scenario is you save on payroll and allows you to have someone training multiple facets of the business, not just clinical, not just administrative, but a little bit of both. The cons, from my point of view, is that it can become hard for that person to prioritize their tasks and manage both roles efficiently, because they would have essentially be doing two very distinct type of jobs. And in the long haul, that can be a recipe for a little bit of a burnout and dissatisfaction, unless there is very clear communication from you about the expectations and the priorities for that person, for that role. So personally, even if we're not talking about the first hire, I am not a big proponent of mixing it up, administrative staff with clinical roles. Yes, I think we can train people to do some tasks to maybe cover for someone who is sick or for a short period of time while we are short-staffed. Those are different scenarios, but I mean more in terms of a long-term solution. Instead, I would rather be very specific with who I'm looking for with each role and what qualities and skills they need to possess, which is something that we're going to discuss a little bit later during this training. Okay, so now let me go to the slide that I accidentally clicked on. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is the roles that we're going to be hiring for. Okay, so of course we have clinical staff, your physical therapist, your veterinarian, your technician, whatever it is based on the structure that you have on your business. But the one thing to keep in mind with your clinical staff is that their primary job is to ensure that the patient that's coming to your clinic is getting the outcome that has been promised to them by your marketing, by your sales and nurturing process, right? And that there is consistency, of course, with the level of care being delivered through your business, no matter if they're seeing you, seeing them, or seeing whoever else. There needs to be some consistency as well. Doesn't mean they need to treat exactly the way you treat a patient, but there needs to be consistency with it. Okay. My tip for this role is to hire clinical staff to do what they want to do and what they do best, which is to treat patients. Okay. You can have other staff that helps support them, like the front desk, administrative staff, and so forth, and who helps drive business growth through marketing. But the best way to leverage your clinical staff is by having them see patients, not by them writing blog posts, doing social media, doing other marketing stuff, doing scheduling, doing billing, that kind of stuff. That stuff other people can do. But what other people in your team cannot do is see patients. The clinical staff is the only one who can treat the patient. So you got to leverage that aspect of it. Another role you're going to have is your front desk, front of the house kind of role. Okay. That's the traditional front desk type of role, which basically they help deliver the customer experience and help the clinical staff managing day-to-day things like cleaning, billing, scheduling, inventory, and this and that. My main tip over here, guys, is that this is a vital role to the success of the clinic, but it's also a role that most clinics struggle with retention simply because they expect them to do too much. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. Before I wanted to talk about the next role, which is the client manager. Okay, that's a role that's not very traditionally seen in our field. But for me, it is a vital role for the success of the business too, because this is the nurturing role in the business. And they're very vital because they're going to be the ones that are going to first interact with a prospective new client on the phone. And their primary role should be to be able to effectively and efficiently communicate to pet owners how you can help them. And then nurture their relationship afterwards through a follow-up system, through emails, text messages, this and that. Okay. The one thing to keep in mind is this role should be a different role compared to the front desk role. Even though the majority of clinics in our field tend to bundle them into one. And let me explain a little bit more why I believe those are two separate roles. Okay. I think most clinics tend to bundle them together because it's easier, but the challenge is that you ended up, like I said earlier, asking too much of the same person. This role is different because the front desk role is about customer retention, while a client manager is about customer acquisition. Now, that does not mean, because it is a customer acquisition kind of role, that it needs to be someone with a sales background, but it means that it needs to be someone who actually loves talking to people and building relationships. So why do I separate those two roles? Why do I separate the client manager from the front desk role? Because I think it's very hard for you to create the level of customer experience that you should be striving to create with your business while asking someone to spend their time on the phone with a prospective new client, while at the same time having them manage a lot of the day-to-day operations of the clinic, like scheduling, billing, cleaning, invoicing, calling vet clinics for veterinary records, and all that kind of stuff. All right. If you really think about it, that initial phone call is your best opportunity to show a prospective new client the value that you bring to them and show them a different level of customer experience compared to other clinics around you. So if you put yourself in the perspective of, like, on the shoes of that prospective new client, okay, how would it look like? How would it feel to you if you are that person on the phone, but you need to be put on hold? So then that person who is talking to you can schedule someone for their follow-up session, because that person then is standing right in front of them, right? So then they're on the phone with you trying to explain, hey, this is how we can help you. But hey, let me put you on hold over here because I need to schedule this person for their appointment next week, right? That's not a great customer experience. And even if you put yourself in the shoes of the person that is trying to schedule that appointment afterwards too, right? How would you feel if you have to stand there and wait while that person is done talking on the phone? Also doesn't feel good either, right? So that's why one role is customer retention, while the other role is customer acquisition. That's why I feel, especially for the clinics that are growing, those are very distinct kind of roles. Now, if you're just getting started, there's going to be some overlap, and that's natural. But as you grow, you're going to have that distinction. And then the fourth role is a practice operations manager type of role. That's the person who helps you run the business, you, the business owner, run the business while you are seeing patients. Okay? Because when you get to the point where you have maybe another 2 clinicians and a front desk person and a client manager, right? You have a team of like 4 or 5 people, then it's very hard for you to see patients for 40 hours a week, or even more sometimes for some of us, while still managing all the things that come with it. So this should be a non-clinical person who manages all the day-to-day operations of the clinic, the HR, the meetings, and this and that. Okay? One of my business coaches once told me that you can't fly the plane and serve the peanuts at the same time. What I mean by that is very hard for you to manage your business and lead your team while you're spending 40 plus hours seeing patients. And that's where a lot of us get burned out as business owners. That's where a lot of our staff don't feel supported. That's when meetings and deadlines get missed. That's when things start falling through the crack over time. So as your business grows, you can either hire someone to do that for you while you see the patients, or you hire clinicians to see the patients and you manage the operations of the business. There's no right or wrong. It all depends on what you want from it. But the one thing to keep in mind is that it's going to be very hard for you to do both roles, business owner and main clinician, in a sustainable and an effective kind of way. And it doesn't mean you have to be completely done seeing patients, but maybe you go down to seeing patients 2 days a week and you manage the business the other 3 days of the week, right? But you can't be spending 40 plus hours seeing patients while also expecting to efficiently run a business that has multiple staff, that has grown in an efficient kind of way. All right, hopefully that makes sense. So then let's wrap it up by talking about finding the right person. Okay, what to look for in someone. The main thing to remember is that you are hiring to solve a problem. Okay, personality is good and experience is fine. But the key thing to keep in mind here is their values. Okay, someone can have the personality or the right experience, but if they don't align with your values, that relationship is going to be doomed to fail. Right? So you got to figure it out. Do their values align with your company values? Or if you're just hiring your first staff, do their values align with your values? And how do we know that? Most of those answers are going to come through the interview process in 2 particular ways. First is going to be on what they say, and second is going to be on do they say that consistently. All right. So the first one, of course, is based on the answers that they're giving to you during the interview process. So in this instance, it's very good for you to ask specific situations and challenging scenarios that they have actually dealt with. Okay. And ask them how they did so. Right. So it can be a customer service related issue. It can be maybe how they dealt with a work space conflict in the past. And what you're looking for is what they say. And ideally, you ask open-ended follow-up questions for them to expand on that. Right. So, tell me more about that. And how did you handle that? And how was that relationship after a week? Did that customer come back? What happened with that customer afterwards, right? So you start asking them open-ended questions and you take note of their answers. And of course, you see if how they dealt with those challenges matches your values, your company's values. And then the second thing, which is very important, which is where it's something that I learned a little bit over time, is the consistency of their answers too, over multiple interviews. Meaning, you ask those questions on the first interview, and then on the second interview, you ask a similar scenario, and you see how they answer that. And you're not necessarily looking for the exactly same answer, for the exact same solution for the problem that you're posing, but instead what you're looking for is the consistency in their values on how they will manage a hard client or how they will manage a work conflict or whatever it may be. Okay, like I mentioned before, what they say and do they say they portray the same values consistently? Because if they kind of like BS'd you during the answer for the first interview, then more than likely they're not going to remember exactly what they said, and their answer is not going to match on the second interview what they said on the first. And then you know that there is your BS radar should be going up over there. Basically, that's what I mean by it. The other thing to keep in mind is that personality does not solve the business problems. Skills do. Okay? But we got to understand that skills are very different than experience. And what you're looking for in someone is someone who has the skills that you're looking for, but not necessarily the experience. If they have the experience, that's a plus potentially, but that's not a must. So let me explain a little bit better what I mean. So, as a personal example, your front desk or your client manager does not need to have any veterinary or rehab experience whatsoever. However, they do need to have a track record of having a customer service experience type of role, right? So going back to my very first hire back in 2019, that was the client manager role I mentioned earlier. And that person had no background whatsoever in the field of animal rehab or in the healthcare field at all. But what she did was she had experience managing people's expectations because she oversaw multiple projects with a contracted work type of thing with a nonprofit. So she knew how to manage people. She knew how to talk to people. She knew how to manage people expectations. And that was a skill that I was looking for. Another good example is actually when we hire a front desk person in 2021. And this person had 3 years or so experience at that point in time working at a Starbucks. Not as a manager, but just as a barista, checking you in, getting your order, making your coffee kind of stuff. So I knew because of that, she would do very well handling the customer experience in our clinic, which is a much more chilled environment than Starbucks, of course. Not only that, but then over time, she showed that she was great at building relationships. So then in 2022, when that first client manager resigned, then this person became a great fit to get promoted to the role of client manager. And she has been rocking at it since then because she loves talking to people and she loves building relationship with them. So she had the skill set to do those things. And then all I had to do is train her in the role that I wanted her to do. Train her on how to handle those calls. Train her on how to have those conversations, how to portray to people how we can help them with our services, right? But she needed to have those skills so I could then kind of like build up on it, right? And you can certainly say that personality does play a role into all of it as well, for sure. But more importantly than that was her skills. Because someone with the right personality, but without any of the right skills, is also someone who is doomed to fail at a certain role as well. Now, can you train someone with the right personality to develop the skills? You certainly can, especially if you're hiring like a younger staff, you might, who don't have much experience, in the workforce kind of stuff, you might have to do so. But it's also going to require a lot of your energy, a lot of your time, a lot of your resources as well. So in my opinion, we're more than often than not going to be better off looking for that person who has shown a track record of already learning those skills somewhere else. Even if it's someone who has just worked at a customer service type of role for just 2 or 3 years or so, but they have done that already, just like this person had worked as a barista for Starbucks because she had developed those skills there already. And then I was able to kind of like build upon it and teach her the role. Okay. So then how do you know that the tasks, the skills, and the outcome you want out of a role? And for me, that answer comes through something that I call the success description, right? Which is a document you put together and it's part of your recruiting process. That's how then you build your job ads and you give the success description, to people interviewing so they understand what the role is and everything. Okay. But this is the first step needed to make sure that you are going to be clear on who it is that you're looking for. And it's going to allow to kind of like guide you through the recruitment and the interview process. And we break the success description into 4 segments, 4 chapters, basically: the outcome, the tasks, the measurements, or like the outcome of the role. I put measures/outcomes, but the second outcomes is more in terms of measurable outcomes, like KPIs. Okay, I'm going to show some examples in a second, right? And then the skills. Okay, so the outcome is, what do you want for that role? What are the top 2, 3 at the most goals for that role? So for example, if I'm hiring for a front desk, which at our clinic, I call that the client experience specialist, the top 3 goals for that role, the top 3 outcomes for that role is to help maintain cleanliness and day-to-day operations at the clinic, to assist with scheduling sessions, tracking plans of care, and processing payments. Okay. And what's the third one here? I missed it. Hold on. To build a lasting and meaningful relationship with prospective and current clients. Those were the three main outcomes for that role. Okay. Then the tasks are all the different things that needs to be done to achieve those outcomes. And I'm not going to read all the tasks that I have, but I'm just going to read some examples so you guys can understand what I mean by that, right? So one task would be provide the most outstanding experience for every client and patient, contact new clients coming into the clinic at least one day in advance to ensure they have confirmed their appointment and have no further questions, have conversations regarding payments, scheduling, and such, conduct outreach to clients and veterinary clinics to obtain medical records and referral forms, maintain contact with active patients on a regular basis to make sure their needs are met, answer the phone with general questions and direct calls to client manager as needed, and so on, so on, so on. I have a list here of probably about 20 to 25 bullet points on our success description for that role, but I just wanted to give you an idea what I mean by that. Okay, then after the tasks, then we have the measurable outcomes. So how are we going to measure the success of that role and hold them accountable to it? And also, it shouldn't be more than like 2 or 3 for each role. In this case, because this is a retention and customer experience kind of role, it is an arrival rate equal or greater than 95%, meaning the people who are on the schedule are actually showing up, not having missed appointments. It is a cancellation rate of less than 10%. Right? So if people are canceling, we are doing our best to get them rescheduled, and we're keeping that rate below 10%. And an average net promoter score greater or equal than 9 out of 10, which that's basically like a survey type of thing that you can send to clients to get their feedback on kind of like how was their experience with your business. So those would be 3 measurable outcomes for that role. And then finally, the skills. So what skills and competencies are required to reach those measurable outcomes, right? So once again, I have a list of here, probably about 15 to 20 different bullet points. But some of them would be able to answer the phone with general questions and recognize when to direct calls to client manager. Actually, sorry, I didn't realize that was on the skills, actually. Okay, sorry, yeah, I was reading the wrong part of the document here. But here, let me read another one. Communicate effectively with staff about any issues with the client or patient. Be proficient in organization and planning. Facilitate schedules in an efficient, productive manner and focus on key priorities. Be comfortable in conversations dealing with money, cost, payment plans, and the value that we bring to them. Be able to hold meaningful conversations with clients and create a welcoming environment for them. Communicate comfortably and with ease. Strike up a conversation with anyone. Enjoy talking to people and effectively communicate both verbally and in writing. Right? Be able to follow scripts provided, but flexible and adaptable to changing scripts as needed. Very important. Recall names of all clients and patients, making them feel welcome and remembered. And then, some more general things like bring new ideas to the team and demonstrate a record of seeking out learning experiences. Be alert and able to spot potential referral situations or opportunities for the sale of other products and services. Right? That comes with having that relationship, talking to people, dealing with the front desk. And then, of course, demonstrating computer literacy, knowledge of our CRM, this, and that. Right? So then you have this document with the outcomes, with the tasks, with the measurable outcomes of the role and the skills needed for it. And that helps guide everything. And then from that, not only it's going to help you write the job ad that should attract the right type of candidate, but then when you're going through the interview process, you're measuring your candidates off what you just put as a success description, because that's the role that you're feeling for. That's the person that you're looking for. So do they match those things? And you're going through that during the first interview, second interview, and so forth. And it doesn't mean that you're going to get it right 100% of the time, right? We know, for those of you guys who have been on the hiring train before, you're not going to get it right all the time, but it does increase the odds of you getting it right for sure. And then over time, it just helps you with retention as well, because you're going to be finding the right fit and bringing the right person who's going to want to grow with you and grow with your company. All right. So hopefully that was helpful to you guys. If you ever have any questions or anything, please feel free to reach out, Francisco, Francisco, at theK9PT.com. Or you can always find me on social media and stuff as well for more additional content and resources, not just about hiring and HR, but about marketing, about growing, about life as a business owner and how to handle the different challenges, check out our website, caninePTacademy.com, and also our podcast, the Canine PT Academy Podcast, Business Lessons for Canine Rehabilitation Therapists. Thank you guys so much. Thanks, Megan Kelly, and thanks the Online Pet Health team.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please hit the subscribe button so you get notified every time I load a new podcast. I'm here every week talking to vet rehab therapists from all over the world about all things vet rehab. A big thanks to our sponsor, Paw Prosper. Their sponsorship allows us to be able to give this podcast to you for free, so please go and check them out at pawprosper.com. Don't forget to bookmark the next Vet Rehab Summit on Saturday, the 8th of November, 2025. Come and be a part of the world's largest online veterinary rehabilitation conference created specifically for you, the vet rehabber community. Online Pet Health members get VIP complimentary access to the Vet Rehab Summit. For more information about continuing education for vet rehabbers, you can go to onlinepethealth.com.